Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, welcome to Dubai. I hope you guys are having a great time in this FinTech Summit. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So today I'm here to talk about more around FinTech investing from GCC to global markets and what's happening within the GCC, how vibrant the GCC tech environment or fintech environment has become over the last few years. So I'll start with a few market statistics and updates just to kind of bring you up to the speed how GCC and MENA region is going up. And then I'll typically talk about what is required for the ecosystem here to be successful and what are the building blocks out there and what are the gaps we see today. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about Emirates NBD's own innovation fund. We've set up a corporate venture capital fund last year. What we've been doing, what our focus is, and where all we are investing. And again, the idea is to attract all founders, all other investors to come and talk to us. Maybe, we can find some common platform, common ground to work together. So, quickly looking at what's the venture capital industry doing in the world. And you'll see that over the years, 2021 was a big marquee year, high liquidity in the markets. I would also call fear of missing out, quite a lot of free money. And you see the global VC funding went up. It really doubled from what it was doing in the previous 3 years. And then as reality set in, things started going down, and every year the VC funding has been coming down. Within that, the global VC funding or CVC funding, which is corporate strategics who are going ahead and investing in startups or buying startups, that has been a good 50% of the VC funding. So there is a huge, I would say, push from incumbents, whether be it banks, whether be it airlines, whether be it other tech companies, which are also, fueling this economy of getting these startups to come and get these innovation out and adopt those innovative technologies or processes, etc. Overall, if we look at the first quarter 2024, the numbers are still looking down, and we'll probably do very well to meet 2023. But if you look at it, about 13% of global VC funding is going into fintechs, right? So that's what the global thing is. How does the Middle East fare, right? So if you look at MENA, in MENA, the VC industry again has picked up, and last 2-3 years have been really good. But if you look at it, fintech again takes about 14% of the overall VC funding out here. So we again not very far away from what the global funding pool which goes into the fintech side, apart from other areas which is going in. Of course, the biggest one is software as a service. That's the next big thing. And there probably might be an element of fintech in that software as a service also, because that is something which overlaps. Moving on, this was a little bit difficult for me to get, right? So there was a question, how is the money moving from GCC to global markets, and how much of GCC money is being invested in GCC? So these numbers may be a little bit off the mark because they were not very easy to get. There was just one source which was giving me these numbers, but it's very interesting to see. Overall, GCC has been investing quite a lot, right? So the numbers, if you see overall, about $60 billion have been invested by GCC investors globally in fintechs over the last 7 years. And again, the activity went up in 2021, 2022, cheap interest rates, high liquidity, everybody wanting to do stuff. And that number, as with what we see with the normal VC trends, has gone down. The interesting part is how much of GCC investments are coming to GCC fintechs. And that number is quite low, in my opinion, right? How much of GCC money is going to GCC or MENA investments? I think that is a number which should probably grow up because GCC is I would say, a hotbed of capital. There's a lot of liquidity which is being generated out here, but a lot of it is going outside. And what is actually needed and what would be really helpful for the startup community out here is that more of that money starts coming into the GCC platforms. very quickly, looking at where is fintech money going. So what sort of fintechs are going? So again, you all would have looked at this data. Uh, Payments has been the biggest sector which has attracted the most money. Insurtech, then mortgage and lending. Digital assets is picking up 9%. It used to be about 5% earlier. Pure banking, much less. Wealth management is bringing RegTech. And you saw the previous panel here was talking about that they need to see more solutions coming out on RegTech. So that's where the gap is, right? So that's where the smart money will also go, because that's where a lot of problems are. And I'll talk about, when I talk about what is required from an ecosystem perspective, why RegTech is important. So for people, who have ideas, who have, I would say, innovative solutions, if they can fill the RegTech gap, that's a very important piece which we need to fill in. In terms of funding by stage, where things are going in, you will see a lot of money is going on to the mature side, which is typically true. But again, the area which needs a whole lot of thing is the pre-seed investment, which is pretty small, but Series and Series B, because that's where the fintechs needs most of the help. That is where, in that startup phase, is when money is most required for them to scale up. And once they get on their own feet and they start running, that's when the magic happens. So that's again another area where we would like to see more to happen. But it's a decent split. So coming down to what's happening in the GCC and what's happening in the Middle East market, and what are the key enablers. If I break this down, there are 7 key building blocks for successful ecosystem or for fintechs to be very successful and survive out here. One is the strong ecosystem. I think that is something which has been put in place. I think the local governments out here have done a lot. Earlier there used to be only one fintech hub here in Dubai. Today there are more than 4 or 5 fintech hubs. There's one in Qatar, there's a Saudi one, there's an Abu Dhabi, a separate one, there's a Bahrain one. So everybody has done something. Those fintech hubs, those platforms are available where startups are getting advice in terms of incubating, accelerating. They're getting other areas, how to raise funding and all. So that ecosystem is being developed. And in that ecosystem, the one thing which also is also happening is that banks and other financial institutions are also partnering in those platforms, which is helping them. The second most important thing is supportive regulatory framework. A lot of time, and there are examples like that. If I take Revolut for an example, now Revolut was doing very well, but then it needed licenses in various different countries to start operating and scale up, right? They were successful in some markets, but they ran into some roadblocks in some other markets. So, and if you don't have that supportive regulatory framework, whether be it from a licensing perspective, whether be it from getting an innovative process out, central banks doing away with digital signature or with wet signatures and allowing digital signatures to go through. Central banks allowing digital KYC to happen. And I think that's very important. And again, on that front, this region has been pretty much leading the way. I think the regulatory authorities have been quick to adapt and quick to open these things. And some of the examples out there is that the GCC regulators are working separately to establish a regulatory environment for innovation while keeping that financial stuff out there. They've also been very careful about looking at what's required from a perspective of AML and all and everything, and they've come up with specific laws. They've come up with specific laws on digital assets. UAE setting up the virtual assets regulatory authority, and DIFC and ADGM both coming up with specific rules and regulations around BNPL lending. So the authorities and the regulators have been at the forefront of driving this change and allowing the sector to develop. The next one to talk about is around the capital and liquidity, and that's one of the most important ones, right? So on the capital and liquidity side, one important part is that, as I showed earlier, in Middle East, we're still not getting that amount of money, right? And I'll put out another data point out here. if we compare as a percentage of GDP, what is the money which is going into fintech investments? So for the Middle East as a whole, that number is about 0.03% of the GDP, of non-oil GDP. If I compare it to some of the other countries, that number is India, 0.32%, UK, 0.44%, and Singapore, 0.77%. So there's again a big need for that capital and liquidity funding to come up out there. Traditionally, the fintech companies have been going down the seed funding, the venture capital route, and that's been available, albeit I would say we would like to do more. But the traditional funding methodologies, they also need to be developed, right? Banks and financial institutions coming forward to do more of venture debt sort of stuff, to be able to give working capital financing to the startups and all. That's also, I would say, a need of the hour. And that's where a lot of work needs to be done. Another important aspect from a liquidity perspective is that you'll see a lot of fintechs, they start, they're trying to scale up. But as they're trying to scale up, initially for lending also, they're using the shareholders' money or the venture money, which is fueling the growth. But at some point of time, they hit that wall, that in order to continue growing, they need to find liquidity from there. In some of the developed markets, there is a good ecosystem of asset-backed securitization. In the Middle East and GCC here, that is still very nascent. I'm not saying that that's not existing, but that's still very nascent. And for some of these fintechs to continue growing, that is a very important piece to be developed, right? And that again depends upon the ecosystem here itself to come up with ideas, to come up with the I would say, platforms where the asset-backed securitization or ability for fintechs to be able to tap liquidity as they're growing up continues to go. Another important aspect is availability of talent. And availability of talent has been a big problem. The challenge has been to attract experienced engineers, product managers, programmers, designers. And although we have a vibrant, young population which is coming up, whether be it from UAE, Egypt, Saudi, Jordan, and of course there was this program which Dubai or UAE was being